Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SJD Show, where I, your host Sean, talk about anything and everything I find interesting. Today's show, we'll be going over all the different TARDIS interiors through the years, but first, the news. We will start with Formula One, I think. So, what's been in the news of Formula One? So, a few car launches: Alpine, V-Carb, hate that name, Aston Martin, Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren, I think. Red Bull is going to be later on. By the time we're recording, we haven't seen the Red Bull car yet. The British GP has been confirmed to be on the calendar until 2034. Doesn't make any particular note of it being Silverstone, but the fact that we're going to remain in Britain for another 10 years is good. If it's at Silverstone, good, because Silverstone is great. There's been some talk about who's going to be replacing Lewis at Mercedes. What bizarrely, one of the main rumors is one of the guys that Mercedes have put in Formula 2 could just go straight into Mercedes, which I don't buy for a second. And if I was George Russell, I'd be pretty miffed if that was the case, to be fair. But the other suggestion, the main suggestion, which is apparently Total's plan B, is that Alonso will go to Mercedes for 2025, which would be pretty cool, I would say. And then obviously Mercedes would put their young driver, if he does well in Formula 2, into Williams for a couple of years, probably alongside, I'd say probably definitely alongside Alex Albon, and unless Logan Sargent has the best year of his life, I don't see him sticking around in Formula One. Same as Mick Schumacher, I just don't think either of them are particularly good, really. But the actual cars themselves, then. So, as I said, we have now got our look at the Alpine, which we'll have a look at first. A lot of carbon fiber. It was kind of cool last year to see Mercedes go for the carbon fiber look, but I think the fact that everyone's kind of cottoned on, oh well, if we don't need to paint the car, that saves weight. So everyone's now kind of jumped on that bandwagon, which I don't like. I have to say, I kind of agree with a portion of the fandom that thinks that the FIA is probably going to have to step in and say, look, a certain amount of your car needs to be painted. But the good thing with the Alpine, it's blue and pink. That's not exactly going to get mixed in with anything else, as long as they keep the pink. I think they're doing a double livery as they do every year. A couple of races as pure pink, and then the blue and pink merge. As for the car itself, I have noticed a lot of the cars this year, the tip of the front nose is a lot like closer to the edge. Some of them have pulled it back a little bit. Some of them have gone right to the edge. So it'll be interesting to see which one of those makes the big difference. The front wing end plates look, they look nice and curvy. I'm not a particularly technical man. It's one of those, if you want to know exactly what they're all like, I'd highly recommend Ted Kravitz, who works for Sky Sports F1, as he's phenomenal. He's brilliant at breaking this stuff down. So basically, this is going to be, what do the liveries look like? Can I see any major changes? And that's kind of it. And interesting to see the wing mirrors have been incorporated a little bit as well. Yeah, fantastic. So let's have a little look at the sideways view. And yeah, it's a lot of them have gone. Oh, so they've actually gone quite. Their side pods they go down quite quickly. So obviously you've got the little inlet which has been popularized by Mercedes, although it wasn't exactly overly successful. And then it just kind of comes down quite quickly. Now I imagine if we look at the top of that car, we're going to see that they've got those big dips, like between the chassis and huge dips. My goodness, that is aggressive. So the side pods, obviously, they've got the air intake which goes kind of around like a little bulbous shape, but it's almost as if someone's if you imagine it being like a little toy car, it's like someone's pinching where the driver would sit, and there's like two big dips there. It'll be interesting to see if that's kind of copied anywhere else. I say copied, obviously they're all, that's what they are. Right, the V carb. It looks nice. It looks like a classic Toro Rosso, which is good. Yeah, pretty boring front way. It just looks like a pretty boring car. The sort of car that should have finished last in the championship last year, and will probably be fighting for last place this year. I think Visa Cash Out Red Bull is just the most shocking name in the world. It looks fine. Looks fine. Doesn't look like anything groundbreaking, but Toro Rosso is owned by Sorry. Well, V Carb is owned by Red Bull. It's never going to be anything groundbreaking. The Aston Martin's the first one to really buck the trend of those front noses. So the tip of its front nose isn't on the last like slot of the front wing. It's on the second last, which I find quite interesting. They're the first team that looks like they've done that. They haven't gone quite as aggressive with their side pods. The floor looks like it's got a fair amount of detail on it as well. Um, yeah, the Aston Martin. I mean, also what I like about the Aston Martin is it's very clearly Aston Martin. It is nice. It is green. It's coloured in. It's a beautiful looking car. Will it be as quick as last year's at the beginning? We'll see. I think pecking order this year is going to be pretty tough to predict. I mean, if you're going on the back end of last year, it's Red Bull out in front, McLaren not that far behind, Mercedes and Ferrari squabbling over third place, and then Aston Martin a distant fifth. But I mean, that's going on the back end last year. The cars are completely different, so who knows what it will be. Speaking of which, the McLaren, again, they've gone for something similar to the Aston, so they don't have their nose right at the bottom kind of rung of the front wing. They've got it on the second bottom. Actually, they're not wildly dissimilar, the Aston and the McLaren. Interesting. Maybe they'll both be pretty good. Again, they've kind of gone for slightly more aggressive side pods as well. Okay, okay, interesting. I like it. I like it. It's good. Good stuff. Right. Last but not least, no, not last but not least, there's still a couple more to go. So we've got Mercedes and Ferrari. Mercedes again, so it looks like it's just the Alpine and the V carb that have got that the tip of the nose on the edge of the front wing. Mercedes have gone for the second rung up as well. Their side pods obviously nowhere near as aggressive as they have been in recent years. They've kind of got a nice blend of the silver, turquoise, and black, and they've got the red Ineos over the engine air intake as well. Their rear wing looks a bit boring in comparison to some others, as does their front wing. Maybe that's the way to do it. Like, just because it doesn't look as interesting doesn't mean it isn't as fast. But that's not the most aggressive, impressive looking car I've ever seen in the world, and certainly not from Mercedes. Now the Ferrari, by some widely tipped to be the potential challenger this year, I still think it's going to be the McLaren. Especially now that I've had a look at all these again, Ferrari they've got quite a big step between the tip of their nose and the edge of their front wing. They've gone very kind of bog standard with their side pods. Actually, they look as generic as side pods used to back in early 2000s. Rear wings, fine. Very vibrant red, which is good. The floor's got a lot of stuff going on, which is kind of where you want it to be, I suppose. But that doesn't look. I mean, again, this is one of those. They could just be unveiling the base model. What tends to happen is they do the unveiling, and then the car that appears at testing looks different, and then the car that will appear in Bahrain will be wildly different as well. So you always got to take these with a bit of a pinch of salt. Realistically, they're just livery reveals. A couple of slots in the side plates of the front wing though, which is quite interesting. I think out of all of these, I think the Aston and the McLaren look the best, but obviously we'll see what Red Bull pull out. Could be Mercedes and Ferrari fighting for fourth and fifth. I think the Mercedes don't kind of. I mean, they've just announced that Toto's going to be staying for a while, so I don't know. I don't know. Be interesting to see what goes on there anyway. Cool. So that's kind of all the Formula One news that's kind of happened in the past week or so. So we'll move on to Eurovision news, the second part of my trifecta. So we've had a few Eurovision entries selected. Italy, Latvia, and Finland are the three that were selected on Saturday. So Finland's entry, Windows 95 man with no rules. Quite contentious. It's kind of dividing people. Certainly dividing people in Finland as well. But it completely dominated the televote, which is, important, as did Korea last year. I think it's fun. I think it's the sort of mentalness that this year's Eurovision was kind of missing. Everyone's gone for interesting and, not cookie, but like Ireland's entry, for example, which is still my favourite this year so far. Is it's different. People have gone for different this year. So the three entries that I'm about to say have kind of bucked that trend and brought Eurovision back to Eurovision in a way. So Finland's is absolutely like balls to the wall insane. Latvia's is nice bog standard ballad, sang really, really well. And Italy's is an absolute corker, actually. Italy's is an absolute corker. It's the first woman they've sent in a long, long time. I think it's just 2016, actually. 17, 18, yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, Måneskin had a woman in it, but like solo female artist first thing since 2016, I think. And the first Sanremo female winner in goodness knows how long. And the song's brilliant, and she performs it. I mean, I'm not overly keen on how she performs it in terms of just her physicality. I think hopefully she gets an actual choreographer for Eurovision, and the staging will obviously change a lot. But the song's really good. She sings it really well. It's properly catchy. It's already got millions and millions of views on YouTube and Spotify, and it's Italy always do well at Eurovision. They are literally the most successful country, pretty much since they came back. Although they do only have one victory. I have a rolling 5 years of how many points each country have had, and Italy's been at the top since 2017 or 18, I think. So they are regularly they're almost, if they're not winning, they're in the top five. They're almost never out of the top five, top 10 especially. Even when they send something which is complete garbage like BVD. Yeah, they do a good job. So yeah, I think Italy will do well this year. I think Finland, either it will not qualify and it will go down as a massive misstep, or it will qualify and it will do really well. Who knows? There is some belief that Latvia will actually qualify with it. I don't know if they will, but it depends. You know what? You never know. You never know. So obviously, with Eurovision being a big part of my life, along with Formula One and Doctor Who, which are the three prongs of my trifecta, I was announced today that 400 celebrities in the profession, I guess, in the entertainment industry, signed an open letter in regards to the calls for Israel to be banned in Eurovision. Now, my own personal opinions on that aside, the letter, it's not great. It's not written very well. It's very much, we shouldn't be judging people just because they're from Israel, and people from Israel should be allowed to go and do X, Y, and Z. I mean, which fair. Do you know what? Absolutely fair point. So why is Russia banned? Why are Russians not allowed to? Why are we persecuting all Russians from international sporting events? Do you know what I mean? It's a different. Arguably, it's a different situation in terms of Eurovision. If it's one rule for Russia, the rule has to apply to Israel. Israel's retaliation to Hamas's attack on the 7th of October has been 4 months solid, not including the history of the two countries, which I will not get into here because this is not that podcast. But the retaliation has been absolutely ferocious and similar to Russia's ferocious attack on Ukraine, both coming from bizarre places. I don't believe Israel should be in Eurovision this year, purely because Russia isn't. And if Russia isn't, Israel shouldn't be either. That's the end of that. If you disagree with that, absolutely fine. If you agree with that, absolutely fine. What's the wonderful thing about the world? 8 billion people in it, and we all will have different nuanced opinions on it, of course. If you don't know anything about what's happening in Israel, or why this is a big thing, there are a lot of YouTube videos, and not a fair amount of research. I think a little bit of research goes a long way with the Israel-Palestine war. I think the important thing is a lot of people seem to think it all started on the 7th of October 2023. It didn't. It started after World War II. This sort of the fight between the two of them has been going on for almost 80 years, and that's the important thing to keep in mind with all of that. But yes, I think Israel always send cracking entries to Eurovision, as did Russia. So it'd be a shame to not have Israel there. However, if Russia's not there, Israel shouldn't be there either. So, moving on to Doctor Who then, before we get cracking with the main podcast, a little bit of news. So, we've had, I think literally just today, actually, Maisie Williams say that she would be up for returning as me, which would be really cool, actually. Don't really have much else to say with that. I think it would be brilliant if Maisie Williams came back. I think she wasn't great in her second episode, but when she came back in Face the Raven and Hellbent, she was great. Also, David Tennant has talked about the surprisingly persistent rumors that the 14th Doctor could pop up all the time. And I do say surprising because the whole point of that arc was the Doctor stopped. He stopped. He got his reward and he stopped. And now he just relaxes and, he can just do the enjoying part of being the Doctor because the other Doctor is going and doing the doctory parts. And I found it bizarre afterwards when people, even some of my friends were saying, "Oh, I can't wait for Dave Tennant to come back. Oh, I bet he'll pop up and do this." And I'm like, "No, he won't. Why would he? Like, why would he?" The point David Tennant makes is, why would he, in the sense of, well, why would the 14th Doctor turn up to this thing and help out? Why wouldn't it be Patrick Troughton's Doctor? Which is a fair point. Why wouldn't it be the fifth or the 10th Doctor? Why just because he's there doesn't mean he's going to turn up and do anything. Because why would he? The Doctor's got it. Also, he's now just chilling. He's just chilling, having a good old time with Donna and Wilf and everyone. I think obviously the fact that Rose is coming back next year does add, and Mel as well, does add fuel to the fire almost of, well, if they're coming back, then Donna can come like in a yeah, it's one of those where I think we'll probably get references because Russell's not daft. There will probably be, oh, how is he? Oh, he's fine. Oh, that's good. How's Donna? Oh, she's fine. Great. How are you? How's life? Here we are at unit, and Shooty's Doctor will just, get on with it. I saw a YouTube short of just Shooty's Doctor flirting, and I forgot just how outrageous he is. He's wonderful, especially when he's talking to Cherry Sunday, and she's like, "Oh, I'm a tasty treat," and Shooty goes, "Cherry Sunday." Oh, I love him. I love him. If I haven't, I probably haven't yet. Shooty has marched to my. In one episode, he has marched to the top of my list of favorite Doctors in a way that no other Doctor has ever managed that I've watched. To just, I've never seen a Doctor nail it. Episode one, and I mean nail it. I mean, he nailed it in the 20-minute cameo he had in the Giggle, let alone the hour that he had for Church on Ruby Road. And he just smashes it out the park in a way that I just. The last time I can remember an actor nailing it, nailing their version of the Doctor that quickly, that early on, I think it's happened realistically. Well, I mean, to be fair, I can think of three other examples. I can think 4, 9, and 12. But 12 evolved, but Peter Capaldi obviously nailed it because he is just one of the best actors in the world. Eccleston nailed it. I think Eccleston absolutely nailed it in Rose. Absolutely nailed it. And Tom Baker nails it in Robot. Absolutely nails it. I think every other Doctor finds their feet, David Tennant included. I'm not really including War Doctor. I'm not including the 14th Doctor in that. Ironically, I think the 13th Doctor was at her best in her first episode. I think a lot of Doctors sometimes are at their best in their first episode. Yeah, anyway, do you know what? All that's a discussion for another time. I think it's time now to get into the main part of today's podcast, the TARDIS interiors through the years. So, a little bit different to what I did last week. I don't have any Wikipedia articles up. I've literally just got the pictures up. I'm going to have a look. Just going to talk about kind of my thoughts on them, my memories of them, if I have any particular memories. Starting, of course, with the very first TARDIS interior console room used by the first and second Doctors, respectively. And it is gorgeous. It is a beautiful, beautiful set. It is huge. It absolutely encapsulates the idea of bigger on the inside in a way that I don't think anything else visually possibly could have done. The black and white aesthetic works really well. The roundels are so good at just adding extra depth. I think there is a point where you've got like a roundel wall, TARDIS doors, roundel wall, corner, roundel wall, and then it's like wallpaper. And then like the TARDIS scanner, and it's that's a bit of a shame, but If you've ever seen An Adventure in Space and Time, and if you haven't, I'd highly recommend you watch it. It's a testament to Verity Lambert's what does Sydney Newman call it? Piss and vinegar? Yeah. That she got this set built and got it beautiful and spent a lot of money on it, and you can tell. And it is the best part about like very, very early Doctor Who in terms of design. The console itself, of course, we have our traditional and long-standing hexagonal console with six separate sides of different dials and buttons and whatnot. Hartnell was very keen that on the continuity of how the TARDIS console worked. So if a director ever asked him to do something different, he'd be like, "No, no, 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 that's the wrong switch," and the kids all know that. And I love that. I absolutely love that he would go, "Right, well, this is the switch that opens the door, so that's the switch that's going to do this, and that one does this, and if I twist that, that does that." And if a director went, "Well, can you do that?" He'd say, "Absolutely not. The kids will notice. If I do this and the door doesn't open, there'll be an outrage. It'll ruin the magic." He was just, for all of his crotchetiness and his shall we say lack of patience behind the scenes, I think his realization eventually that he had captured the hearts of children nationwide. I think it just made him such a happy man. And then obviously because of that, he came back 10 years later for the Three Doctors, and oh yeah, he's wonderful man. Wonderful man. And I think wonderful Doctor as well. I actually recently, because they put them all up on iPlayer in November, and if you haven't started watching the classic stuff, give it a bash. It's brilliant. I did get through all the Hartnell stuff pretty quickly. And what was interesting to me was it only takes a season or two for him to start layering in what a lot of people attribute Patrick Troughton for. The kind of not clowniness, but just almost the kind of alien irreverence, which Tom Baker again got very famous for. It's all there. It is all there. Hartnell does it all. It's very good. Like one of my absolute favorite scenes is in the Time Meddler, where it's revealed that Stephen, who was in the previous episode, The Chase, has kind of like not hijacked. What's the word? Stowawayed on the TARDIS, and the Doctor's like, "Who the hell are you?" And the Doctor and Vicky are trying to convince Stephen that yeah, we've travelled in time and space. And Stephen's going, "Ha ha ha, right, fine, can I get out now?" And they're kind of looking around the TARDIS and he's like, "What is going on? Like, what is this? What is that?" And the Doctor kind of shuts him up and goes, "Right, this is the TARDIS console room. This is this. That is a chair. That's a grandfather clock with a panda on it. This is the dematerialization control. It's all sheer poetry. Now shut the F up. Let's get on with it." I mean, the Time Meddler itself, I'm going to do a podcast at some point in the future, probably relatively soon, about episodes I would watch or episodes I would recommend for people who have never seen the classic series before. The Time Meddler for me is absolute top tier. It's William Hartnell at his absolute best. Ironically, he's not there for two episodes. It's the first instance of another Time Lord in the show. It introduces a new companion in a really compelling and interesting way. But the Time Meddler is an absolutely sensational piece of it, as is the Aztecs, actually. The Aztecs is another one that allows Hartnell to really kind of stretch what he can do. Yeah, I think Hartnell's absolutely brilliant. We're on a tangent there. Uh, they're all brilliant in their own way. They're all brilliant in their own way. But yes, the interior then absolutely beautiful, gorgeous, huge, everything you could ever possibly want. And then we come to the third Doctor, and that's when the original console does finally get a little bit um, of love. So at the end of season 6, the Time Lords put the second Doctor on trial for crimes against, doing stuff. "Oh, you meddled, so we're going to exile you to Earth where you keep going and middling, and we're going to regenerate you." Haha. Or so the story goes. There is such a theory called the Season 6B theory, which stipulates that the Time Lords didn't exile him straight away. They actually got the second Doctor to work for them for a while. And then when they were kind of done with all the things they wanted the second Doctor doing, then they regenerated him and sent him to Earth. It's a fun theory. I'll probably cover that at some point as well. So the console itself, then, we don't have an interior as much as we have the actual six-sided console itself getting an update, because it kind of sits outside the TARDIS for a while. I can't, for the life of me, I can't remember why. Oh, right, no, it's because they've removed the Third Doctor's ability to travel in time, which I don't entirely. Yeah, they needed a reason for him to stay on Earth. Fine. So I think he's got the actual unit outside of the TARDIS because he's trying to fix it, isn't he? Something like that. Anyway, console itself, not in black and white anymore. It's a bit green, it's a bit lime green, and looks a bit old and clunky. And I think the switch from black and white to color doesn't do the console design any favors because now it looks very dated. It looks very 70s. I'm sure for the time it was brilliant and wonderful and whatnot, but I don't know. To me, it looks a bit of its time and of its era, whereas the black and white ones look better. To be fair, once it gets inside the actual TARDIS, um, and we have the roundels back, and we've got that wonderful wall of roundel wallpaper. Now the room itself looks a little smaller. Well, it could just be like shooting angles, could be the actual set is smaller. It does look very similar to the original set, though, I have to say. But the console does get another little update where I think for a start, just being inside the console room itself and just having the bright white lights does actually help a lot. The time rotor in the middle's got a couple of different colours on it, which light up and do their own thing, which makes it look a bit more interesting. Looking at the six panels individually, it looks a little bit more sci-fi yay. But not like sensationally over the top. There was a little roundel change in the Time Monster, I think it was, where the roundels kind of stop being inwards, if that makes sense. They've cut holes out. It's now like they're like speakerphones, and it looks horrible. It looks absolutely horrible. But hey ho, that kind of sticks for a little while. And then I think the next big jump is gonna be. Oh no, yeah, we've just got another batch of this. And then yeah, I think in the Time Monsters when we see the Master's TARDIS as well, which is basically the same, just the time rotor's a bit different. Yeah, that's kind of it. Again, I mean, it's not great. I don't like that one at all. But it doesn't stick around for too long because come season 13, we have the Fourth Doctor come along, and wonderful. We have the glorious TARDIS interior here with the roundel, some of them filled in, some of them not. Console panel has gone from being that weird lime green to being white again. White suits it. I think it needs it. Apparently, and I didn't know this, Third Doctor's first season, the TARDIS interior wasn't shown on TV during the Fourth Doctor's debut season. Did not know that. Makes sense though, because the entire season is them hopping about a lot. It's a fun season, season 12. Very interesting. Very here's a new Doctor. Here's some companions. Here's a lot of old monsters. Have fun. Anyway, yeah. So the next kind of console just looks. I mean, it's nothing to scream home about. It just looks like a slightly more updated version of the Third Doctor's one. Now, the one that was used for season 14 is one of my absolute favourites. It is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It's called the secondary console room, and it is wooden. It has got a wooden aesthetic. It is just the most gorgeous, like Victorian Gothic design. It is. Oh gosh, I wish I could just show you it. The main console itself, they've still got the hexagonals, but everything's closed up. So it's not like there's buttons and dials and stuff. You have to open up each flap, and then there's buttons and dials and stuff underneath. The time rotor, which isn't really there because it's the secondary console room. It's like a little mirror. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, and it works so well with Tom's like burgundy aesthetic. It's just gorgeous. It's the console room which Sarah Jane leaves and Leela gets introduced in. I love this console room. I remember when I watched The Deadly Assassin for the first time, goodness knows how many years ago, thinking, God, that's pretty. That's a that's a gorgeous, gorgeous console room. And then you move on. Um, Watching the Mask of Mandragora, and the first episode where it's unveiled, and the Doctor's like, "Oh, do you know what? Let's go over here." Oh, it's great. It's great. I love it. I absolutely love it, and I think it's a shame that it doesn't last that long because it is only that one season, I believe, and then we're back to kind of boring, white, and meh. We literally take what I think is a massive step back. All that money spent on a gorgeous, gorgeous console room for, season 15 just to bring back the white and the boring. And it's a shame. It does coincide with Philip Hinchcliffe leaving, of course. So obviously, Graham Williams' new tenure. The Doctor doesn't have the burgundy coat anymore. It's a more kind of cream coat. The Fourth Doctor goes through a bit of a personality change for the next 3 years. And the TARDIS interior just looks a bit boring. And in comparison, I guess, for itself, it's fine. It's there. It's white. It's roundels. It's the console itself is a bit more silver than it is white. There's a bit more fancy dials and buttons and all the usual boring stuff. But it isn't great. It's a massive step down. And what's a shame is that sticks around for the rest of the Fourth Doctor's time and um into the what do you call it? What's his name? Fifth Doctor's time. It's a bit of a shame. Season 20, we get a slightly new, so sorry, interior. It's just a bit brighter. The roundels are yellow instead of white. The time water in the middle's a lot redder, which is nice. There's a lot more kind of asymmetry to the design of the console, which is really, really nice, which is good. It's certainly an improvement, but it's not great. And then in the 50th anniversary special, 50th, in the 20th anniversary special, the main actual console unit takes a huge upgrade. And I mean huge. It becomes huge. It's now something that you kind of have to walk around and fly around. It's a lot bigger in terms. It's deeper. It's wider. It's longer. There is a lot of layers going on, which is really, really cool. It brings it right into the 80s, which it really needed. Does it look dated now? Of course it does. It doesn't look timeless. And that's my problem with a lot of the classic. Other than the console used for season 14, none of them are timeless. They all date, and they all date quite badly. Apart from that gorgeous wooden finish, it is absolutely beautiful. And then we come to, I think, one's got to argue until the most recent, until 14 and 15's TARDIS, the best TARDIS design, full stop. The interior that was used for the Eighth Doctor in the TV movie, it's huge. It's absolutely massive. Like it's gorgeous and it's huge and they didn't go, let's make it 90s. They rather cleverly went with, well, let's go for a kind of anachronistic. So it's wooden again. The main console is wooden. It's got huge like metal arches coming over the side of it. That kind of look from certain angles make it look a little bit Dalek-y. Not dissimilar from what they used for 13's TARDIS. The time water itself is a huge column now, not just kind of a little cylindrical bubby up and down that just goes above your head. It's huge. Like there's this sense of scale and oh, it's absolutely beautiful. What I also love about this is that the console unit is in the middle of what you could tell would be a typical TARDIS set, which is encumbered by the big like Dalek-y things, and then you've got an entire room around it, a library, a gate, which is again the big and wooden and timeless. It is timeless. And it's not often Doctor Who manages that. And I think one of the absolute singing praises of the movie, other than Paul McGann, is the actual TARDIS itself because it is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. It is it is a big step between classic and modern. Speaking of which, and also this is one of those when I saw the movie for the first time, I was just like, "Whoa, this thing's huge!" But now we have the TARDIS. The TARDIS, which I think of as the TARDIS, which I think a whole generation of people will think of as the TARDIS, and that is the choral theme used by 9 and 10. And it's magnificent. 10 out of 10 10 out of 10 roundels. The roundels are back, of course. On the sides, they're kind of more hexagonal, but they are there. It's such a um I think they say grunge and organic and all that stuff. Like the columns are beautiful. The Time Water in the middle is probably the only bit that's dated a bit. That does look a little bit cheap nowadays. But again, it was 2005, so fine. In general, I think it hasn't aged well because it looks like a bunch of plastic wires have been shoved in places with some lights. It does look like that. But it's the TARDIS, man. It's this to me is the TARDIS. It's beautiful. It's the green, the kind of bronze. Again, quite Dalek-y if you look at the inside of the TARDIS. It's very Dalek-y. I think the little ramp leading up to the main console is pretty cool. Obviously, the Ninth Doctor has a lot of fiddling about with it. The Tenth Doctor uses it a lot, like the gratings on the floor that come up and you can go in and there's stuff in there. I love it. I love this TARDIS. I really, really do. But I've got to tell you, my reaction when Amelia Pond stepped into the huge and vibrant and gorgeous 11th Doctor TARDIS set, I was blown away. I think it's the repurposed Torchwood hub for those that don't know. So at the end of, I mean, I was about to say spoilers. I mean, this was 15 years ago, but yeah, spoilers, I suppose. At the end of series two, the Torchwood hub gets blown up. Series two, series three, series two, three, series two. I don't know. At some point, the Torchwood hub gets blown up. Um, And instead of just destroying the set, they repurposed it for the 11th Doctor set. As such, because the Torchwood Hub itself was designed to have, no matter where you put the camera, there was something new to see. That's what happens with the TARDIS. And I think that is the concept that I think has stuck, other than 13. And it's a concept I think is absolutely right for the TARDIS interior. I really, really do. Again, the orange, it's bright. The green is still there. We've kind of kept the color scheme, but it's all a lot brighter. There's stairs going to left, right, up, down. There's, the bit underneath the main console, which the Doctor goes and does fiddlings with. The roundels are there, but they're very variable and kind of all over the shop, and some are scanners, but you can't really tell. The actual consoles themselves, is this not the one that has like the ketchup and mayonnaise? But I can't remember. Eh. The actual like panels themselves, when you look closely, don't look like much. It's all the stuff that's around them and on them and beside them. There's a little bit of the coral still there. um, yeah, it's quite good. Again, we've kind of gone for the anachronistic feel of the movie one because I know he's got that like old, really really old fashioned phone. Um. Anyway, yeah. So I was gobsmacked with that, but nowhere near as gobsmacked as I was with the next TARDIS. The next TARDIS was my favorite for a long, 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 long time. Doesn't really change much between 11 and 12, but the change it gets is huge. So, Joe, it's interesting. Actually looking at the TARDIS as it was in Series 7, it's not great. I don't like the central. Yeah, I don't like the fact that the kind of the six panels are very 20th anniversary. That's a massive step back, and not in a good way. The main thing with this was um, the rotating like bits at the top of the Time Lord. But this looks very boring and bare and bland, and as such, I'm just gonna jump straight to how it looks with there we go with the eighth Doctor, with the 12th Doctor. Turn the lights down, and what a difference! It's moodier. The roundels are back. There's books all over the shop. There's stairs. The panels look. I mean, I don't think they've changed in any way, shape, or form, but they look different. They look better. Yeah, apart from new furniture and color changes, it is exactly the same. But it doesn't look it. It doesn't feel it. It feels interesting and kind of mystical and dark and interesting. He's got the chalkboard. Oh, I love 12's variation on that TARDIS. I absolutely adore it. A little shout out to the War Doctor's TARDIS, I suppose, which was, I mean, absolutely designed to be a mix of uh like the classic and the new. So it's more circular in the middle. It's starting to get grungy and corally. I think it's actually got some coral columns in it, but it's got the roundel, like the proper classic roundels at the back. I don't particularly like it. I think it's fine, but I mean, it doesn't really get a lot of a shoe. But I think if we were stuck with that for a whole season or two, you get sick of it pretty quickly because it's designed to be an anniversary special. Right, yeah. Then we come to the 13th Doctor's TARDIS. Um, I don't like it at all. At all. It doesn't have a single redeeming feature for me. I don't like the color scheme. I don't like the fact that we go from big to tiny and cramped. Like I said, I don't think the TARDIS interior should ever be cramped in any way, shape, or form. Um, I don't like the kind of orange crystals that it makes the set smaller rather than bigger, and anything to make the TARDIS inside look smaller to me is just not great. It's not great for me. I mean, the roundels are still there. I mean, I've just had a look at like the whole thing. The problem is it's a small set, and it shouldn't be. It just shouldn't be. The orange isn't great. Like I'm trying to find a decent photo of the actual like console itself, and there isn't one. Like there we are. One, two, three, four, five. At least they kept six. But like there's nothing there. It's just like literally there's nothing there. There's next to no dials. There's like a handle here or there. It's not good. It's just not good. It is not a good design. It's really not. But do you know what? I think a lot of Chibnall's era from kind of top to bottom, I think failed in pretty much every way. But it's important to see that Doctor Who isn't infallible, and regardless of your opinions of any era like I think every era of Doctor Who has its fans and its haters, and that's fine. Like, that's absolutely fine. And maybe haters is a strong word. There are eras that are universally generally loved, eras that are generally universally not loved, but will have their lovers. For example, the Sixth Doctor's era and the 13th Doctor's era, not particularly well liked. Um, 12 and 11, like Stephen Moffat's entire run is pretty hit and miss for some people. Russell T Davies's run is at the moment hit and miss for some people. I don't really understand why. It's beyond stunning. Like Hinchcliffe's run was generally, perceived as Doctor Who's golden era. Barry Letts' his run was perceived pretty well. I'm not a big fan of that at all. Yeah, so it's one of those. Every era is going to have hits and misses. I've got my opinions. You have your opinions, which is amazing. Now, to get to my favourite TARDIS interior, the current one, it's huge, it's white, it's beautiful, it's massive. The Doctor runs around it. It is everything I want a TARDIS to be, and it is just huge. The six panels, where it's proper like high. It's 2020. It's 2020s. It brings the TARDIS modern and future at the same time. It doesn't go for anachronistic. It goes for, you can tell the Doctor Who finally has a proper budget, and it looks sensational. Each panel has got dials and buttons left, right, and center, but they're not like cheap plastic. Like I'm literally looking at three things that are like interesting shapes that have got blue buttons on them and a yellow one. I'm also seeing two blooming car heaters. But that's fine. It's Doctor Who. It's like random stuff like that's always going to be in there. The Time Water is itself gorgeous. Just the fact that there are like this is going to be one of those where it's not really going to be a case of you can put the TARDIS the camera anywhere and you'll get an interesting new look, but it's just the possibilities are endless. There are doors to multiple different places and things, right? Who knows? The opportunities are endless and it is beautiful. So if I were to pick my favourite, like I said, it's 100% going to be the current iteration of the TARDIS. I love the current iteration of the Doctor. I love the current iteration of the TARDIS. I'm not overly keen on his outfit, but it suits him very well. As I said last time, I despise the current Sonic screwdriver, but you can't get everything right, and that's okay. That's fine. Not everything is going to please everyone. Do your best, and it'll be golden. So that's kind of that's the main part of the podcast for today. So we will now move on to the stuff that's happening in the life of Sean, what we're reading, what we're watching, what we've been playing. So reading wise, we started Doctor Who and the Seeds of Doom, and I mean started. I think I got half a chapter in, and it's just utter boring. So we stopped. Started the Golden Compass, the first one. What's it called? I can't remember. It's fine. But we're about like again half a page in. But the big two things that we've been reading. First one is, let's have a little look. Is Oliver Twist by the wonderful Charles Dickens, which is brilliant. It's honestly absolutely brilliant. Um, it does more than I thought it could do, in the sense that really, I guess my expectations were. I mean, they're really non-existent. I've never read any Charles Dickens before, but it's so funny. Like it is so funny and so eloquently written, and the language is beautiful, and but you get a lot of context clues, so you don't really need to think about what does this word mean and that word mean, because a lot of the time, let us see, you're getting it in context. But he's just so beautiful with the way he uses his words. And in the chapter we just read, because there are a couple of chapters in, um, Oliver, it describes in a really pleasant, like really dark humor way, um, Oliver getting like beaten up by the workhouse and being starved by the workhouse. And it's you read it and you chuckle and you go, oh, ha, 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 oh my goodness, like this is an awful situation for him to be in. But gosh, he's written that so well. It's so funny. And it's also really interesting seeing the way he writes and the way Simon Cowell portrays him in the Doctor Who episode The Unquiet Dead. I've got to say, I like that episode a lot more now that I've read some Dickens. Uh, Simon Cowell's perfection, and Mark Gatiss writes him beautifully. Yeah, yeah. Oliver Twist is amazing. If you've never read it before, I would highly recommend giving it a go. I also read the 15th Doctor's audition script, which was released today, and it's astonishing. We've got the Spike Master, or the Spike Lord, or whatever, and it just showcases exactly who the new Doctor is in a wonderful, zany. He's bouncy. He's smiling in the face of danger, and then there's a point where um the Spike Master is like, oh, Doctor Who, ha ha ha, and the Doctor goes, yeah, 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 heard that before, but you're not. So the premise is that the Doctor's locked in this room with a character called Robin, um, who turns out to be the villain of the piece. The Doctor figures this out about page 6 of 8 and says, "But you're not Robin, are you? Because Robin's on the other side of that wall because you've killed him." and he's cold and he's dead, and that's because of you. And then the Spike Marsh say, "Oh, ha ha ha! How did you figure it out?" Whole thing. um, Things happen. The Doctor gets out, and the big thing for me that's in the script, which I am psyched to see Shooty do in season one, is he kind of he says, "I should show you mercy, and I should be kind and let you out. Goodbye." Like, just sensational. And then the actual companion's there, and the Doctor goes, "Oh, hi, yeah, absolutely fine. How are you? Let's go do some stuff." Like he hasn't just killed someone, like straight up killed someone. Like there's no ambiguity there. The Doctor killed someone. Oh, and I love it. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. It's like there are somehow already complaints after one bloody episode that Shooty's Doctor is too happy. Well, it's just utter nonsense. There is obvious, like every Doctor will have darkness. This is a new Doctor. And not even just an because of regenerate. This is a brand new Doctor. He has literally taken, like that Rick and Morty episode, he's taken all the not toxic traits, but like all that baggage is now sitting with 14. But it's all dissipated, all of it's kind of been let go. And what we are left with is a Doctor who is almost completely starting from scratch. But I think you would be remiss to think that this Doctor isn't going to have an unbelievable dark side, because Tom Baker's Doctor fucking snaps someone's neck. He straight up snaps someone's neck. And he was I'm going to smell in the face of danger. But that's the Doctor you don't want to be trapped in a room with. That's the Doctor you are terrified of that Doctor, because what's under the smile sort of thing. I don't know if that's where Russell's going to take this particular version, but oh, he's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I recommend giving that a little read as well if you feel inclined on the BBC website. Only real thing that I've been watching this week is I've started watching a lot of long form like cutscenes from video games that I've played, and that I just kind of want to get caught up on the story. The main one being Kingdom Hearts, which in itself is almost 100 hours of cutscenes, and I'm getting there. It's fine. It's good. Keeps me entertained. Finished Arkham Knight, video game wise. Brilliant twists in the end. Love the idea. Love. I just like yeah. Full spoilers for a game that came out 10 years ago. Obviously, you find out that Arkham Knight is Jason Todd. Batman eventually gets cured of the thing that's had the Joker in his brain the whole time, and it looks like he's going to retire, which is quite nice. My Nuzlocks. I've started. I failed my silver one pretty quickly. I got up to the second gym leader, and then Bugsy absolutely wiped me out. I'm currently I'm on the Crystal Nuzlocke, and I think I've just beaten Bugsy. I can't quite remember where I'm up to. Um, I was doing a Shining Pearl Nuzlocke as well, and got my arse absolutely handed to me by the first trainer in Vork's gym. My problem was I'm kind of trying to train up Magikarp and all of these, and think that's the thing I'm going to have to try and stop doing, because I switched into Magikarp when it died, and then switched into a Budgie as Geodude was on like a maximum rollout, so everything just got absolutely trampled. And I literally this morning started Legends Arceus Nuzlocke. Haven't got anywhere yet. Still haven't even picked my starter, but well, that's a plan for later on. And with that, I think we are done. So, thank you again for listening to this podcast. If you would like to get in touch, you can do on Gmail. So, Gmail is the SJD Show podcast at gmail.com. You can also find me on YouTube as the SJD Show podcast, where the video will be there. Feel free to put a comment there as well. I'm also on TikTok as the SJD Show. There's also my Patreon as well, the SJD. Let me know your thoughts on the episode in general, what you thought about it, what you thought about all sorts of things, structure, audio quality, content. But I guess most importantly, what are your first memories of a TARDIS? Mine was Ninth Doctor's. What is your favourite? Why is it your favourite? Are there any which you straight up dislike and don't like? Like, for example, I don't like the War Doctors at all. I don't like the Third Doctor's console in the slightest. Yeah, let me know. If you wish, let me know. Take care, and I'll see you next time on the SJD Show.